The Center for Educational Media and the College of Education at Middle Tennessee State University are proud to offer professional development to K-12 educators in Tennessee through our online video library. These videos are aligned with standards set by the Tennessee Department of Education. For more professional development videos, check out our website at cem.mtsu.edu.
So this is putting us into the 20th century. And the National Woman's Party, I'm going to read the overview, which is that little section on the beginning of the lesson plan that kind of eases you into the context. So the National Woman's Party, and notice it's not women's party, because at this time it was woman's suffrage, and now it's confusing which one we should use. But anyway. Oh, and they're suffragists, not suffragettes. Suffragettes, I believe, were the English ones. So we've been saying it wrong all along. Okay. The National Woman's Party, the NWP, inspired by the more militant British suffragist movement, broke away from the mainstream American suffrage movement represented by organizations such as the National American Woman Suffrage Association. The NWP picketed the White House in an effort to gain national support for federal action in securing women the right to vote. Committed to their use of civil disobedience, NWP members were arrested and waged hunger strikes in their efforts to gain support for their cause. So, lots of groups have little splinter cells that grow into like more militant wings when they realize that change is coming a little bit too slowly. And so these are women who are a bit more extreme, of course, extreme in the context of the 19-teens, right? Picketing the White House nowadays is just something like your kids could go do, This is a very lengthy lesson plan with lots and lots of linked resources. And it also asks you to do, as the teacher, a little bit of homework beforehand because there are, along with the online collections for the National Women's Party, they have articles that were written by librarians that give you extended context. And so that's really good. It's, it's much more focused than, you can go to Wikipedia and stuff, but this is tailor-made to go along with the primary sources in the collection. So there are links for you to do that when you're teaching this. And as with any lesson plan, you take whatever bits and pieces you want to use and do whatever you want with them. We don't really expect people to do exactly what's in all the steps, but it's there if you want it. Okay, so now in your folders, you have what's called a primary source analysis tool. And you have the teacher's guide version of that, which means you have the questions. I am going to pass out what the students actually fill out when you give them the prompt questions, so that way you can fill out this. They also have an online version of this, in case you haven't seen this yet, where students can go fill out the online form and then email it or print it out or download it. Okay, so everyone gets one of these. And what you're going to do is you're going to analyze this photograph based on the questions. These are the generic forms. They're not specific to the format of primary source, although those are available from the library's website. So it may be that not all of the questions on the teacher's guide are perfectly matched to this primary source. So just, use your judgment. And you can do this with a partner or as tables if you want. I don't mind. But let's analyze this primary source. I'll give you some time to do it amongst yourselves, and then we'll all do it together as a class. So trying to specifically get that. All right, let's go through this in these 3 steps all together. Now, the first step, of course, is just what you observe. And this is pretending you're a student and you don't know anything about this, and just what can you see on here, which is a good step for any level of student. It's a good step for people who are English language learners, or any kind of level of differentiation. These worksheets work really, really well with any kind of group of students. So teachers are really bad at this step because they want to jump straight into column 2, which is asking you to bring in your background knowledge, and they start interpreting it right away. They start telling which president it is and all that kind of thing. And no. Let's just start off with what you observe in the image. So starting out with, what kind of image is this?
Well,
It's a photograph. Yes, always tell your students, please start with the obvious. Start with the obvious. You have to list these things. Okay, what else?
I see that one sign has words and the others don't.
Yeah. You've got signs or banners with stripes, and one with words. Right. And what are these words?
Along with Swimming Wait for Liberty. There's a big white house in the background.
Way to do that. Way to dance around it. Yes, there's a big stately building in the background. What else?
It's peaceful. They're holding signs and banners. They're not holding weapons or anything. I mean, they're not
Okay.
in that
They don't look like they're
physical way.
screaming.
It's a bunch of ladies, and they are not agitated. They're standing, of course, they're standing still. It's a photograph. But it also seems like they're standing calmly still. But that's where you kind of have to, seems to it. But yeah. What else?
They're all wearing sashes, some sort of sash.
Uh-huh. What other kinds of clothes do they have on?
Dark colors.
Dull clothes. Did you say dark clothes? Okay, I thought you said dull clothes. What? Dark coats, dark coats, dark boots.
Their ankles aren't showing.
Hats. So those are some clues to when this might be.
They have sashes on.
Yeah. Okay.
You saying that they standing there calmly and not agitated, but if they have on dark colors, can't that be viewed as being militant?
No, because I assume that most people's coats were dark colored at this time.
The dress.
Yeah. I mean, maybe if they were like olive drab green with epaulettes, but these would just be, and this is where column 2 would come in, and you'd have to have some background knowledge to be able to say, no, this is kind of normal for women's clothing at that time. But they are all wearing similar things, so maybe there's a uniform aspect to it. What else? You can pull a lot more out of here just by looking at it. We've heard sashes.
Was the fence the gate?
Fence. They're standing in front of a fence. There's a fence between where they are and that building. What are they standing on?
Sidewalk.
Well, we assume it's a sidewalk. We can't actually see the street from here. But yeah, they're on the sidewalk side of a fence.
The flags clearly represent something because they're of the same pattern and colors.
Yes, and of the sashes as well. Mm-hmm. And you can't really see the colors in this sepia tone photograph, but you can sense from the shades that they're similar.
They're women of affluence.
Well, that's column 2. And this is where you ask students, I know, but this is good, because when students say something like that, your response is, what makes you say that?
Well, because not just one. Okay, let me digress. I have seen this photo.
Well, of course you have. This is where teachers already know what's happening, and you gotta pretend you don't.
Some of the women, they're not just wearing coats, but they have furs as well. It's kind of hard to tell right here, but the lady in the exact center, next to her, right other side, she and the lady on her right They both have, I think the ladies call them the mufflers, the big furs where you stick your hands into, and then some other ladies on the far end, they have it as well.
Okay, well, let's use that as an opportunity to glide into the second column, where this is usually the point at which you give students the title and the date. And this is where you guys can bring in all of your background knowledge. So this is where you can say these are affluent women. These also you can say from the way that they're dressed that it must be cold out, right? Because that's not something you can see from this photo. Okay, what else can you say based reflecting on your own background knowledge?
They have the word liberty, which is on their declaration.
Dun, 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 dun. Yep. Using those words again.
That they are at the White House.
That's the White House. Yes, that goes in column 2. They are picketing the White House in 1917. What president is it?
Wilson.
Woodrow Wilson. This is during World War I.
In 2019, we take pictures every 5 seconds. But in 1917, someone would have had to have been very intentional about taking this photograph, which by definition shows that this must be an important thing that's happening.
Okay.
Whereas
documented
today, that would not be such a big deal.
Right, and the women are all looking forward, which means they know they're being photographed. So this is where you can ask students, do you think the photographer is sympathetic to what they're doing or not, or can you not tell? Because I don't think a lot of your students step back and think about who took the picture. They just take the picture at face value. Yes?
Question, why wouldn't the White House be listed in the first column as something that I...
Well, this is where people who aren't as strict and picky as I am would let you put it in the first column. But I think it's because you have to assume some of your students might not know that that's what the White House looks like. But you can say from looking at it, it's a building with columns and a triangular pediment, if they knew that word, you know what I mean. And so they can describe it even if they don't know what it is. So that way there are, if students just write what they see in column 1, they won't get it wrong.
So, stately building. In column 1, White House in column 2.
Right, but I mean, it wouldn't be like totally outside the realm of possibility to just be like, well, that's just so obvious that that is the White House. It's like saying Abraham Lincoln in a picture of Abraham Lincoln instead of a man with a beard. I'm the part of our staff who's incredibly picky. So I put you all through the ringer. So you can decide like how you want to go through these steps with your students. It's just the practice of forgetting what you already know or like putting that to the side and just basing it on observations is a real skill. And it's called for in the curriculum standards anyway.
It says Pennsylvania on the picket line.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah, it says Pennsylvania.
It does say Pennsylvania.
But we know, I presume, that it's Washington, D.C. So they must be from Pennsylvania.
Oh, I was thinking Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yeah.
Or, see, I thought about Pennsylvania
Yeah,
also.
I mean, it could be Pennsylvania Avenue, which is what they're on, or maybe this is a contingent from Pennsylvania, or both. Obviously, wherever they're from, they are on Pennsylvania Avenue. We know that, but yeah, the way that it's written, Pennsylvania on the picket line, does make it kind of sound like that's what they're representing. Okay, any other? Of course, we know the larger context of this too: women's suffrage movement, and is this before or after the amendment? How long from the amendment is this, and that kind of thing. So, okay, what about the third column? Now, the third column is another place where your students can really go as far as they want to, because they can ask whatever questions that they have about this. And I mean, we all know there is such a thing as a stupid question, but you're not supposed to say that, right? You're supposed to tell students there's no such thing as a stupid question, although there certainly is. But anyway, But that's cool because it allows them to pick out the parts of it that they find interesting and maybe like, oh, well, what's going on here? You know, who are these women? You know, what is a muff? You know, what are there more women outside of the frame that we're not seeing? How many? Who is taking the picture? That kind of thing. What are the colors on the banner? That's a really good one. Yes, we're good. Huh?
And what do they represent?
Right. What do the colors represent? Because colors on flags always represent something.
Did the president see their protest?
Ah, good question. Good question for column 3. Any other questions that you would have? Yes?
Was this a one-time little demonstration, or did they come back every day? I mean, those are things that students hopefully would wonder.
Yeah. How long were they standing there? And were there places taken by other women?
I'm wondering, this is way off, but it's like today's world, comparing it, the sashes, like I wonder if there's a connection of pageants and sashes, like, well, was that like when there's pageants now, is that like a connection? It's like, yeah,
I wonder, do you ever see pictures of men wearing sashes? I guess the like Neapolitan. Napoleon, right? Napoleon wore a sash, right? Boy Scouts, yeah.
Again, were these affluent?
Yes. So were they, you know, because for one thing, are they playing hooky from their jobs, or are they rich enough to not have to have jobs, or are they married? Do their husbands support this? Do their husbands even know what they're doing?
I was going to say, who determines who's going to go and stand out there, though?
Yeah.
Are they a part of a large group, and then only a certain amount of people are appointed to go?
Right, because think about that. During the civil rights movement, they picked like the best students to integrate public schools, you know, so that they would represent the movement very well, like the Clinton 12 and the Little Rock 9. So, I mean, is that what's going on here? Are they picking the women that they know will be the most stoic? Like, how was this reacted to by people walking by?
I'm about to ask a question because going back to, what's her name, Dr. Bond that was here earlier?
Yes.
My question is, why are white women protesting for rights? Shouldn't they already have rights as an African American? So just looking at it from another perspective, because during this time, we don't know, you know, that the white women are fighting for rights. We see it, but we don't know it. So what my question would be, well, shouldn't they already have these things? Because we don't. So just thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
I had another one on a little lighter note. If they knew they were going to be out there for a long time, why would they have on flat shoes?
Put it down to the sadistic people who made women's shoes at that time. Because it wasn't even like they had right and left. It was like one shape.
That's kind of like how they dress.
Oh, no, don't show the ankles. But I like it because it's the kind of question a student would ask. Yes. Sometimes, I mean, students will ask things that I've never thought of before. It's really cool. Okay, well, see, there's a lot that you can milk out of this photograph that's supposedly just, people on a picket line. So at that point, this is where you ask students to define what they think civil disobedience is. They know what disobedience is, but what's civil disobedience? I mean, supposedly they've already learned about Henry David Thoreau by this point, if they can remember, because that would have been, what, 4th grade, 8th grade? So hopefully they'll still remember that. Ralph Waldo Emerson. But so what's civil disobedience? Anyone?
Not adhering to the rules of society.
Okay. Anyone want to build on that?
In a respectful and nonviolent manner.
Okay. And want to grow that a bit more? Yeah.
Disobey a law you think is unjust according to your conscience.
Okay. So those are 3 good components. Now, this is just a definition from the dictionary. So it'll be slightly different and slightly the same no matter which dictionary you look up. Refusal to obey governmental demands or commands, especially as a nonviolent and usually collective means of forcing concessions from the government. So basically what y'all just said. And so that's what makes disobedience and civil disobedience two different yet somewhat related things. So then you can talk to your students about how maybe that photograph that they just saw, how might that be an example of civil disobedience? Are they being disobedient?
Yeah.
They're challenging the law.
Yeah, for that time period.
Yeah, yeah. Are they doing anything wrong?
Maybe unexpected, maybe unexpected or unaccepted, because the Bill of Rights said you can have the right to assemble, yet maybe unexpected or unaccepted at that time.
Now, the video clip that goes along with this is from Iron Jawed Angels with Hilary Swank, and I like it a lot because they're showing women, you know, standing on the picket line, and it's kind of a little bit of a montage because you have supposedly governmental workers trying to figure out how can we get them, how can we charge them with something, and they're like, you know, going through this whole list of, oh, what about, oh no, what about, oh no, what about, oh no, like they want to find them guilty of something. They want to be able to say for certain what they're doing wrong, and what is it that they finally charge them with?
Sidewalk.
They're just blocking the sidewalk, you know? It's like, how many vague laws do we have that are just in place to be able to charge someone with doing something that you really don't like but can't actually charge them with? So, voila. Okay, now I'm going to pass out one per table, tactics and techniques of the National Woman's Party suffrage campaign. Now this is one of those lengthy essays that I told you was linked to the collection, and I'm not saying that you have to read all of it and we're going to take a quiz on it. I'm just saying this is here to provide some context because you're going to be doing some more primary source analysis in groups in a minute. So this is to add to your background knowledge so that the column 2 can be nice and robust. Okay, and there is a subsection in this essay specifically on picketing and demonstrations. So you could, you know, skip straight there if you want. But yes, this is a very collective effort in this group. And this is where you have to really be organized. And so this is kind of explaining how they're going to go about doing this. So, okay. More primary source analysis tools, and I've got some more to hand out to you. You know how you said that this must have been a purposeful campaign to take pictures and to document it? Well, that's true, because there are a lot more pictures that go along with that one, and I'm going to give them out to your tables for you to analyze, and then we'll all go through and see what they look like.
American life. Because instead of like TV shows, you would like put it on like what was happening right now. So
When you get down here, they talk about mob violence, so I'm sure they're like, you know, safety and other things, you know.
I'm going to put the images on the board, and when it's your group's turn, go ahead and summarize your analysis for us. And if the contextual essay helped answer any of your questions, go ahead and point that out. Okay, I believe this is the group at the back.
Well, we have 2 women being arrested for picketing outside the White House. Upon closer evidence of looking at this, the gentleman on the right-hand side, we said he appears to be someone in authority, and he appears to be emotionally involved in this arrest. We don't know if the lady on the right, on our right, She appears to be either looking at him or the boy who is standing here. So we were wondering to ourselves, is this her son or is this her husband? He seems to be really enthralled in what is going on. This lady in the center, she appears to be wearing a badge of some kind, but at that time in our nation's history, we were wondering, were there female officers? And so, but she does appear to be the one who is actually doing the arresting. She has these two ladies by the arm. There are several men standing around. This gentleman right here in the corner, it's kind of hard to see up here, but he appears to be poking fun at these ladies being arrested. As you can tell, these ladies are wearing the sashes that we saw in the picture outside the White House. So we're still wondering what do the sashes, what the colors mean and all of that.
That's answered in the essay.
And so this gentleman is wearing a uniform. He appears to be an officer. I think that's all we said, isn't it? Is that right? Okay.
All right, well, that was a lot to get out of this. Good. Now, did anyone, I know some of you might already know, and of course it was answered in the essay, what colors are on the sashes? Purple, white, and gold. Okay, next group. Oh, this was one that was not assigned to a group, but I want you to see it anyway. Well, there are tons of umbrellas out, which must mean it's raining. And you can see the pickets with their sashes and no umbrellas. So they're standing out in all kinds of weather. And according to the essay, they started doing this in January, which can be cold. All right, what about this image? Who had this?
It's raining. We see a band of adults like playing, men playing instruments. We see police. We see women carrying banners. We see the fence. We see a car that's stopped, apparently, because there's somebody in front of it. I guess we're not supposed to know the date, but we figured late winter. And then collections. We said it's the White House.
And also from that last one, when the caption said that it was on his second inauguration, that was the same day that our photo was taken. So as they're walking and marching 7 times around the walls, then that was on Woodrow Wilson's second inauguration day.
Okay, now the title, Marching 7 Times Around the Walls of Jericho, what's that a reference to? What happens when you march 7 times around the walls? Yeah, so this is a nice little biblical analogy that's putting the underdog scrappy heroism on the mantle of the female picketers. And the walls that deserve to come down would be the laws, right?
Well, now that we know it's his inauguration, we're wondering whether Wilson was there at the White House.
Okay.
Why are the police there? These are just questions.
Yeah.
Why? What music are they playing?
Oh, I like that question. What song is playing?
And we were curious as to how many women were there.
Uh-huh.
Were they arrested? Were they stopped? And if they were, did the band have the same fate? Or we don't know.
Right. Is the band there in support? Or is the band there to intimidate? Or is the band there to drown them out? Who knows? Who knows? All right. I like images where you just can't tell sometimes because it forces students to think from different perspectives and different outcomes. All right. This one.
It looks like women are walking in a circle. I mean, I just get
Okay.
that lady.
Yep. They're not standing still.
There's men over in like a bunch over there.
Uh-huh. They are standing still.
Some people are walking through on the other side.
Uh-huh.
I think we walked to see one.
Yeah, they're probably walking around and back and forth in front of a space. And yeah, it's January 26th, so maybe you're staying warm.
The signs say more than the other picture you showed us before.
Yes. So what do these signs say?
Mr. President, you said liberty is the fundamental demand of the human spirit.
Okay.
So what? Oh, what did I say about the street?
You said it was the front of the White House.
Oh, yeah, well, I was trying to place where by the White House that was, and I'm thinking, I don't remember, I know that, I don't think it's the Pennsylvania Avenue side, I think it's that back side.
Oh, okay.
That's, just always foot traffic.
Okay, and I bet you could Google map that in like 5 seconds and check for those pillars out front. Okay, now one thing that the essay said that was very interesting that goes along with this is their choice of words for these banners. And so how is it smart to put a Wilson quote on a banner?
They're trying to embarrass him.
They're embarrassing him. They're using his own words against him, which we saw with the Declaration of Sentiments. We saw with Abigail Adams.
It's like, yo, man, you've been using all this language. So use it.
And also, if they use his words, those are safe words and nobody can accuse them of sedition. Which, there's a lot of sedition acts going around because we are in that era right now. All right, what other kind of thoughts did you have on this one?
I was wondering about the freedom of speech. Men have freedom of speech at this time, and then I was like, well, they can kind of do a loophole because they're women and men are, the ones that have power. So why couldn't women get charged with lack of freedom of speech? But then I saw their silent marches. Then I'm like, but their words are what they're feeling. You know what I mean?
Well, women still have the rights enshrined in the Bill of Rights.
Right.
So they still have.
You know what I mean? There's loopholes where it's but this fits.
This is true. This is true. There's a lot of cases nowadays where you actually do not have freedom of speech. That's really only in certain contexts. Okay, let's go to the next one.
Certainly a stately building.
Stately building again.
Fire.
Fire.
Burning fire. Which if you would go to reflecting, you would assume that it is cold, and it is January 1990. Certainly they're in front of we assume they're in front of the White House. But this time, the words that are on this banner, take it up a notch.
Yeah.
The words that are on this banner.
Will you read them for us, just in case people can't see them?
It says President Wilson is deceiving the world when he appears as a prophet of democracy. But he's opposed to those who demand democracy for this country, while you're dealing with other countries. What about ours? He's responsible for disenfranchisement of millions of Americans, especially, and we know they're referred to women at that time, and we in America know this, and the world will find him out. I mean, they take it up and I say, really calling him out, so to speak.
Yes. So yeah, the gloves are off. And what is Wilson doing in the name of democracy abroad?
Versailles. Well, the peace conference.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's moral diplomacy in Latin America.
Yep. So he's certainly using democracy as foreign policy. But what about domestic policy, Mr. President? Okay, what else is going on? What's up with that flame?
It's a cauldron, and they're burning his speeches.
Well, I mean, there are watchfires. And then I don't know if this is when they burn speeches and they burn them in effigy, or if that happens later. I don't know if every watchfire was burning him in effigy. Now that seems a little seditious, I have to say. But yeah, it looks like it must be a windy, I don't know, why, the banner's not blowing in the wind, but it's like, I wouldn't know it was really.
Or maybe the fire's going. Is that smoke, like the fire?
Yeah, I guess it's, I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell.
She's holding the flag.
Oh, that's true. She is kind of holding it. You're right. So maybe it is.
And this is the first picture you don't notice as many people. It's really just the four.
And actually, this right here is. It's a man. or it's a boy.
Like a man.
I think it's a boy. I can see better on my screen than up there. Yeah. Okay, good. Now this one.
I mean, we said we saw a woman holding a banner. She's outside. She has a hat that has an edge on it, but my colleague Suzanne said sort of like Batman-ish. She's alone in this photo. Or in other photos, we've seen groups of women.
Yes.
There are buildings behind her. We see patches of snow, and she has sort of a straight, stern face with a slightly down.
But this one we have a name too. Like you could actually get your students to research this woman. Okay, now what about Silent Sentinel? Why do you think they use that in the title? So what do you think of when you Silent Sentinel? It gives an aura of like vigilance and steadfastness and a lot of other kind of good sounding adjectives to that.
And then maybe why she had that stern look on her face.
Yeah, she's serious. And she's guarding something, because sentinels guard something.
I think as you look at the series of photos, a question that came up in the very first photo can now be answered. Because this one says, what's her name, Ms. Hopkins at the White House on New Jersey Day. One of the photos said New York Day. The very first one says Pennsylvania. So now we know it was not necessarily talking about Pennsylvania Avenue, but these women are from those states protesting on a particular day.
And I love that. I love how, you have students focus on one particular photograph, but then when they see these all in a group and they read some of this, or if you give them some of this, because by the way, this lesson plan is differentiated for 5th grade and high school. But yeah, their picture gets bigger. It's like jigsaw puzzle pieces. More and more that they get, the more of the picture, the larger picture that they can see.
One thing I noticed that they didn't do a whole lot of talking, but they let their words speak for them, so that one thing, people can see them. People can see that. The public can see, this is why we're here. We don't have to say a word. You can see if you're wondering.
Yeah.
It's speaking for us. It's giving us that publicity, or letting people know why. And the more people are going to focus on what they read there, and it'll cause more thought provoking.
Right, and also you can't drown out a banner.
Right.
Now you can rip a banner from a woman's hands and rip it up, which is what they did with like the ones against Kaiser Wilhelm. Because they thought that was going, Kaiser Wilson, because they thought it was going a little bit too far. But yeah.
These are all wealthy women, and most of them were not about breaking their place in society entirely, too.
They were using their status in order to do something progressive. Also, you said the word publicity. And this is definitely a publicity stunt. And it was orchestrated to be that. And your essay talks about how there were pageants and parades before this. And so it's like, what can we do next for publicity? Everybody's already like pageanted out. So what can we do to draw attention? So, okay. Good. All right. This one was not distributed, but you can see is working women's picket. Those are all the images then, so I guess every group reported out. And this is where you can't watch the video, but basically it's like a 4-minute clip from this movie that depicts what we just saw. And you can tell that they were looking at those exact same photos as you did because their banners look exactly the same. And even the way that they're standing on the sidewalk. Yeah.
There is another photo that I've seen that goes along with this, where we notice that the women are outside the White House, but there was one particular day when President Wilson and Mrs. Wilson were driving in, and she insisted that the car stop. And they stopped. And of course, we don't know what the conversation was in the car, but We know that President Wilson saw the signs because First Lady Wilson insisted that he stopped, that the car be stopped. Of course, he wasn't the one driving, but you know.
That must have been snapped by somebody else whose collection did not go, like, because that didn't end up in the same collection. But yes, so Wilson definitely knew about this going on, and you can read more about that in the essay too, how he reacts to that, and how their participation changed a little bit when World War I broke out. Okay, now I'm not going to make you do these, but there are worksheets that go along with this that are attached to the lesson plan, and they ask similar questions. Here's the 5th grade one, and there's the high school one. So this asks, one popular banner used by the NWP member stated, "Mr. President, how long must women wait for liberty? Explain the meaning of this slogan." And then, how persuasive do you think this slogan would have been to the general public? So, and then the last one, design your own suffrage banner on the back of this page. And for high school, it's explain the meaning of the slogan on the banner. That's the Kaiser Wilhelm banner. And that's, have you forgotten your sympathy with the poor Germans because they were not self-governed? 20 million American women are not self-governed. Take the beam out of your own eye. So this is one of those banners that took it up a notch. Okay, and then why would many see this slogan as seditious? And you'd have to explain what seditious is, I suppose, to your students. Why do you think the National Women's Party chose such an inflammatory slogan? And then how do you think other women's suffrage groups might have responded? So you can see the questions, the same kind of get students to think about what's going on, but a little bit more advanced for the high school. Now there is another component to this lesson plan. We don't have time to go through it all, but I'm still going to hand out the article. There is another aspect to this big, long, contextual essay talking about the arrests and imprisonment. So there is an article about Miss Lucy Burns. You know, once they figured out how to arrest the women, they would do so, and then they would stick them in jail for a while. And here you have a bunch of rich, sheltered women put in jail, and they've never been in these circumstances before. And some of them are very, very, very dedicated to the cause, and they have as models what the suffragettes did in Britain. And so this is where it's talking about her treatment in jail, and it's designed to get sympathy. So this is from a newspaper article that you can get all sorts of historic newspaper articles online through the Chronicling America page of the Library of Congress website. Now, this has another worksheet as part of the lesson plan that goes with it. See if you can take a quick read. She talks about wanting to claim herself as a political prisoner. So why would she want to claim that? What does it mean? What's the difference between the kind of prisoner that she was and a political prisoner?
Sounds like maybe your treatment, where you were thrown in jail, how you were treated, like the counsel you were able to receive.
Okay.
Be treated as everyone else.
Yeah. So maybe it has to do with treatment. It also, I'm sorry?
Perhaps what she was standing for, what she was arrested for.
Yeah, maybe it has something to do with the kind of definition it gives to what she did to get put into jail. Because to claim political prisoner would mean that she was doing something politically wrong, and they don't want to claim that because that gives a certain kind of political legitimacy. Do you think this article is sympathetic to her plight? And if so, how can you tell?
Very thorough.
It's thorough. Yeah, and all the gruesome stuff too. So it's really highlighting her poor treatment, and it's letting her do a lot of the talking. So what was some kind of treatment, and are you shocked by it?
Yes.
I mean, I'm shocked they went 7 days without eating. Yeah. Force feeding is a tube down into through your nasal passage down into your stomach.
I like the not talking to each other, like you're just asking for that.
Right. It's like a principal walking through the halls. Well, don't talk. Yeah.
I think the terrible treatment also shows how opposed to this people were and how it angered some people.
Okay, so maybe their treatment was not just because these women did something wrong and we are here to lock them up, but we are mad at them. We are going to show them that they do not have the power, or they should not have the power to do that. Now, what about how the women responded to their treatment? I mean, in one place, she mentions how she had already been in jail before.
Yeah, they were willing to go through that.
And not just once, but some of these women were arrested multiple times.
I think that they were trying to advocate for themselves while incarcerated. I mean, her saying, I have a right to seek counsel, but also I think probably not being belligerent and making the issue worse. So I think that they were probably very respectful as they were in their picketing. They were, trying to get what was right, but not.
Right, so they are certainly operating by the set of rules that they think ought to be. And also, she's educated enough to know what is and is not allowed to her in jail, or should be. Yeah.
Kind of bounce off of what she was saying and come to the civil disobedience that in order to bring it, for people to see it and see the horrors and the wrong of it, that you're willing to go through it and willing to be treated this way. Mm-hmm. And like I said, they were willing to do it again, just so that it can be brought out.
Right.
Because of the horrors of it.
Right. I mean, think about the civil rights protesters who were blasted with the water cannons and with rabid, not rabid, but mean dogs, and what some people are willing to go through to stand up for what they believe in. And so nowadays it's really easy to look back and see these women in a heroic light. But that was not necessarily, you have to remind your students that it wasn't really necessarily how most of society saw them at this time. Now, this article is from December 1917. And we saw the picketing beginning in January. So this is all in the space of 1 year, where it goes from nonviolent calm picketing, and then it ratchets up, and then you end up with this going on. And yet we're still, how far away are we from the actual amendment? 2 years. Yes. So again, they're still waiting after having gone through all this.